Everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Seric Show. Today, we're going to be doing another playoff breakdown where we got the Nashville Predators versus the Arizona Coyotes. So, Eric, the Nashville Predators, they used to be known as a very big powerhouse in this playoff format. In this entirety of the league, they used to be this top defensive team. Now they become kind of a mediocre, hard to watch team that isn't that fun anymore. I hate to say it, but that's what they become.
It's weird, because I'd honestly, if we had fans in seats, I would still love to watch Nashville in the playoffs, but mainly because of their fans.
The fans make them.
Yeah, and just the energy that their forwards a very high energy group. Not many stars, although I mean Philip Forsberg is very highly skilled. Arvidsson as well has got some talent. Like there's some good players there, but no one on Nashville in their in the franchise history has really hit near the top of the league in points or goals. Like it's really by committee. And it's very very interesting looking at what new coach John Hines. He's actually, I'm pretty sure he's their third coach in franchise history. Because Barry Trotz was there for so long, and then they had Laviolette, and so he's their third. But he had Arvidsson on the fourth line, really throwing the lines in a blender to see what sticks. But it seems like he's making what, in my opinion, the right call in having the Jofa line reunited in training camp, which is Ryan Johansson, Philip Forsberg, Victor Arvidsson, because I think that gives. I mean, it's a great name. And it gives them the closest thing they have to it's a good first line, and it can match up well, especially when we'll get into the Coyotes where I think they kind of are lacking that top line. I think this line can help swing things, and just provide that offensive spark and kind of the go-to guys for a team that has been widely by committee scoring.
One player I'm really surprised to not see on this forward line, group even is that young player, Eli Tolvanen, that was very highly prospected for them coming into the season.
Well, he'll still be a part of the reserves, but he's not super close to cracking it still. He's got an elite shot, but especially with the game getting faster and faster, you need to also be able to catch up to the play and play with speed, or else you're going to get left behind. And he's still adjusting to that in North America. I wouldn't say the ship has sailed with him, but with all the hype surrounding him, it hasn't been as smooth of a transition as they might have hoped.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. So, so Matt Duchene has been a disappointment. And so do you really think, even though Nashville really has the big names on their forward group, do you really think they have what it takes to really push through this playoffs?
That's an interesting question because, I mean, I think you can put Mikael Granlund and Kyle Turris in that group too, as guys that have a reputation as a bit older, and we thought stars that had kind of made their names in the league is this is what we are as players, and they've sort of struggled to hit that same level of production with the Predators. And I think last season I had them as a pick to go to the Cup Finals just because of how much potential there is with this team that they haven't put together with those guys. Because if Kyle Turris plays the way he's played in Ottawa, if Granlund plays the way he played in Minnesota, Duchene plays the way he played in Ottawa or Colorado or something, like that's dangerous. But for some reason, there's always something a bit off, and they never seem to really hit their highest potential. For me, I think if there's any reason that I think they could go far, it's actually the less heralded names in their forward group, like Calle Yarncroke, great player with speed. Colton Sissons, who was a star for them on the run to the Cup Finals. I mean, yeah, he had a hat trick in the final game against Anaheim. Rocco Grimaldi, who's a tiny guy with lots of speed and skill. Like these are the guys that will really move the needle, make the difference. I
Nick
think.
Bonino was a big part of the Pittsburgh Penguins teams that won the Stanley Cups.
Yeah, and as a third line center, I think that's the perfect slot for him. I think they're going to want either Johansson or Duchesne to emerge as a top center instead of just being two second line centers. And I think that's the biggest thing for them matching up against teams that they might play further into the playoffs. Not that Arizona has, that many top tier centermen, but going forward, if they want a long playoff run, we're going to have to see Ryan Johansson enter the beast mode that has always been promised.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, moving into the defense. I think Nashville looks weaker than in years past. Roman Yossi and Ryan Ellis on that first pairing is an unbelievable pairing. I think that first line defense, I think any team would be lucky to have. But as it goes down, it starts to really slow down as you especially get towards Corbinian Holzer, who I forgot was even playing in the league. I thought he was still on Anaheim, but apparently not. So tell me about this depleted Nashville defense, really.
I think you put it perfectly, Spencer, and Yossi and Ellis. I think Roman Yossi should win the Norris Trophy this season over John Carlson because of his amazing offensive output, especially on this team that doesn't score. He had some great stats, and also his defensive play was stellar, which you couldn't say the same for John Carlson. So I think he should have. And actually, by some metrics, Ryan Ellis actually led all defensemen in the league in wins above replacement. So technically, the most valuable defenseman was Ryan Ellis for his play. So I mean, that's a top tier defensive pair. Ekholm, I think he's been really good in the past. A bit of a down year for him, and Dante Fabra, who's a youngster with some good potential. But I'd say that's probably a mid to good second pair, which in the past with whether it's Subban or someone else or Seth Jones even, right? Like they had a very good second pair. And then we get to Jared Tenorti and Corbinian Holzer. I was surprised to hear that this was the pair because Dan Hamhuis and Yannick Weber are still on this team, but the Tenorti and Holzer seem like the extra defensive pair. You know how you have 4 or 5 at practice, especially now. But Tenorti and Holzer were the ones that were playing for them, and they're the ones that are kind of wrote in. Yeah, so Tenorti has been a guy that's always been around. He's a bigger guy. I don't know how much faith I would really have with them. I think they're going to follow the model of playing their top 4 defensemen as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Going into this goaltending tandem, you see Saros and Pekka Rinne. So Pekka Rinne is an interesting goalie. He's kind of like Bobrovsky in the sense that he either plays very well or has like a shambolic performance.
Is that a shambolic?
Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. I mean, it's either really good or really bad. It seemed to be very polarized with Pekka Rinne over the course of his career. And UC Saros, I think, is a very good young goalie and still is very young considering he's only like 25 or something, and goalies don't really start to hit their peak around like 29, 30. So I think he has a good potential, but I've always found a problem with his size. I think he's very small, and although he's very good positionally and very quick, I think he's just very small goalie. And if you get him moving, it's especially in today's NHL with the accuracy and speed of shots. If you move a goalie around enough, especially with that size, who can't cover as much ground as you see Pekka Rinne does, I think it'll be harder to really solidify himself as a starter. But as you've seen, there are smaller goalies that are able to do that, and I'm not trying to say, oh no, he'll never be good. I'm just saying that is a thing of concern if they are thinking about going with him as the starter over Rinne. But yeah. What do you think about that?
See, I think you're right. It's a difficult situation, and Saros, for the eye test for me, when I look at him, I see the same as you. A smaller goalie. Hmm. But that being said, it seems like he earned the trust of John Hines down the stretch. I mean, he started 15 of the last 21 games while both were healthy. So Rene really struggled this season, and he's getting up there in age. And it looks like Saros is going to be the next guy for the Preds. Like he's going to hand it over. Um, and you know what? I think, as you said, Rene, it's tough to know exactly which guy you're getting. If it's the guy that helped them get to the Cup Finals, or it's the guy that helped them flame out against the Jets in the second round. He got pulled in Game 7 that year after two bad goals, and I don't blame them. So I don't know. I think you probably go with Saros, who's playing a little bit better. You feel confident having Rene with the experience if you need someone to come in later, but I think you let Saros test it out and see where he goes.
This this next team, the Arizona Coyotes, is very interesting. I am a very big fan of Hayden, Barrett Hayden, I think it is, or it's Barrett Hayden.
Mm-hmm. Barrett Hayden.
Yeah, Barrett Hayden. He was the captain of the World Junior team for Team Canada, and I think he has a very big upside. But this Arizona Coyote team is really interesting considering Clayton Keller really dropped in status, I thought, this season in terms of what I think of him as a really good player in this league. I mean, I still think he has a very bright future. I just don't see his pedigree as high as I used to, as I initially thought when he had that almost Calder winning season with the Arizona Coyotes. And I think Christian Dvorak is a very offensively skilled player when he was with the London Knights, and even in his young career. I mean, he's only 24, I believe. Nick Schmaltz coming from Chicago, I've always loved. And you have the older guys like Soderberg, Hall, and Kessel, and Connor Garland, who I think is younger actually. But you have those guys up front who are big names, but don't seem to be performing as well as they have in seasons past. So.
Yeah, I think Clayton Keller, he is someone that hasn't followed the same trajectory as a lot of young players, and the tendency for so many is to write them off at that point. But he's still so young, and with how good he was early, it's almost like then he has that expectation every time. And development isn't straightforward for a lot of players. It goes up and down, and it's also learning how to be a pro and be an adult. So with his talents, I think there's a lot of untapped potential there. But you're right. I mean, he has struggled in years past. But I think he's someone, now he doesn't have to be the guy on this team. Playing against, weaker competition, being able to, really let his creativity thrive, especially with Derek Stepan, who's he's almost like Mr. Reliable, I think. He can penalty kill. He has a nice shot. He got offensive touch. For the Coyotes center depth, it looks like, to me, they have 3 second line centers. I would say Dvorak, Schmaltz, Stepan. Second line.
Kind of like a better version of the Nashville Predators.
I think the high end of I'd say Johansson and Duchesne are like high end second line centers. These guys are probably middle of the pack second line centers. Like, I think there's a difference between those two. Yeah, and Connor Garland, someone that you mentioned, he had a great breakout season. I mean, he had 22 goals this year for a team that was kind of starved to get on offense, and he kind of came out of nowhere for a lot of people. But I think the key to their offense are the veteran guys, Taylor Hall, Phil Kessel, the guys that have been goal scorers before, have been able to drive the bus for different teams. Now they're here, and the Coyotes need them to drive the bus. Do you believe that they're capable of doing that for this team?
I want to believe they can, just because I've seen them do it in years past, and I think that they have the potential to be players that can drive series in the way of their teams. But I just think that the way they performed specifically in Arizona has been a red flag in terms of my confidence going into this series. I don't think that they have been clicking the way they need to in order to really take the steps necessary to do well in this playoff series. I think they have the definite ability to overpower this Nashville Predators team, but I just don't think that they have the skill or coherence together yet, like as a group, to really go beyond this qualifying round.
Yeah, it is important to note that Phil Kessel did reveal that he was battling through more injuries this season than he had in the years past, which could have affected something, or maybe not. It's really hard to know what to make of Phil Kessel as a person. I think we can only look at his past production, and especially in the playoffs, he's been a proven performer. When the games get tight, and he's something that I don't even think Nashville really has. Someone with just a dynamite scorer with his speed and his pedigree, but just someone that can he's someone that can create a scoring chance just off the rush.
Yeah, that shot is so deadly. We've seen it for years when he was in Toronto, even. Just his ability to step into a shot and just wire it past a goalie without even seeing it is unbelievable.
Yeah, and Taylor Hall is, I don't think it's that crazy to say that he's the best forward in this series. With respect to Philip Forsberg, Hall is but with that being said, Hall is a former MVP. Whether he should have won that year or not, I'm of the opinion McKinnon should have won. But he had an amazing season. He's hit, he kind of has that ability to turn it on, and he kind of struggled coming over from New Jersey this season, making the adjustment mid-season. It took a while for him, but it seems like he's gaining familiarity. He was forming pretty good chemistry with Christian Dvorak and Garland, who's someone that can keep up with Hall's skating, and he even has entered into preliminary talks for a contract extension with the Coyotes, which shows to me that he's at least committed enough to this playoff run to consider staying for the future. That he felt like he had enough of a fit, and that he sees enough in this group that it might be worth it to him. And I think that sort of commitment makes me more confident in his ability to help create something with this group.
Okay. What do you think about this defense?
Oh, this defense is very interesting, because I'm going to put this question back to you, Spencer. What do you think of Oliver Ekman-Larsson?
I think he's a top pairing defenseman on any team. He's not any team. I mean, obviously there are going to be exceptions.
Other than ironically the Predators.
Yeah.
Ironically.
Yeah, I was to say, like, there are some exceptions to, like, very good players on that left side, but I think he is a 1A or a 1B type defenseman. I think he can really produce offensively. He can struggle defensively sometimes and can get caught in up in the play. But I really think he's made strides as a leader and as a player over the past couple seasons, and I think he is a top pairing defenseman that deserves the contract he got. And I think he'll lead this Arizona Coyotes team if they are to do anything. Not just him by himself, but just like that defense is very solid. If you look at some of the players that they have, like Nicholas Hjalmarsson and Jacob Chikrin are good players. Goligoski is also very good. I even think. They've got it's not the most flashy defense you'll ever see, but it's also very solid and can get the job done, I think. So
yeah, I think you kind of got to what I was alluding to, where I think Ekman-Larsson for year is he's gotten votes for the Norris and whatnot, and I think the expectations were a bit high, especially when he was the only guy on the blue line. But I think importantly, having someone like Jacob Chychrun, who's an absolute stud.
Yeah.
And I think he going forward is the most important member of that defense, even though Ekman Larsson's their captain.
He was a big pickup. He dropped in the draft too, I remember.
Yeah. And, Hjalmarsson, great defenseman. Yeah. Jordan Osterley is also, underrated on that third pair. It's a pretty good fit in. And if Demers, helps offset Ekman Larsson, they got chemistry together. I think it's a very balanced group where you're not too worried with whoever's on the ice. You don't have to shelter them like the Predators.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think even with, the Preds have the high end of Yossi and Ellis.
Very top heavy.
It's top heavy, and as the playoffs would go on, I feel like you want your stars to be stars, and this would be the moment where Ekman Larsson can really definitively put his name in the hat, because they've been out of the playoffs for years.
Yeah.
So this can be a real proving moment for him. But I think he'd probably feel more comfortable with the Coyotes' defense. At least I would.
Definitely. The clear advantage, I think, is in goaltending. With getting Darcy Kemper back and Antti Raanta. Antti Raanta himself has proved that he is a performer in this league and can play to the standard of a starting goalie if necessary. But Darcy Kemper has really taken strides in the past 2 to 3 seasons where he's really shown he is a top goalie in this league, I think. I think he, positionally, just watching him, the eye test for me, I think he's one of the most enjoyable goalies to watch positionally, and just the way he moves and his athleticism. I love Darcy Kemper, and I think that he could be a big factor in if this Arizona team does anything in pushing them to being the team that they hope to be. So.
Yeah, Darcy Kemper, since joining the Coyotes, has been on another level than a lot of people thought he had in him.
Yeah.
From bouncing around, he was back up in Minnesota. And on the Kings before, and he played pretty good for the Kings, but I don't think the Coyotes brought Raanta in to be their starter, and Raanta has also played pretty well. He's been injured a lot, but his stats have been good too.
That's what I was saying.
It's just the fact that Kemper has been even better.
Yeah, they got very lucky with their 2 goaltenders, and they're on decent deals as well, each of them. Yeah,
and it's important to note, sort of similar to the New York Islanders, they are a very defensively conscious team, which is a good thing for goalies, because you're going to get support and your defenders are going to be back. For them, the issue isn't as much keeping goals out of their net, but it's to put them in the other team's net. And having 2 goalies that you can count upon and be comfortable with heading into the playoffs, I think that's a pretty good place to be in.
Definitely. I think the only team that would have been really able to rival this tandem is if Chicago had kept Lehner and had Crawford Lehner as their tandem going into this playoffs. I think that would have been the only way team that really competes with this standard of goaltending, because I think these are 2 legitimate starters in the league. So.
Well, technically, then I would put the Vegas with Fleury and Lehner.
Yeah,
would be in a pretty good spot.
You're right.
They don't have to deal with the play-in. But.
Fair. Yeah. Okay. So that has been. Oh wait, no. We have to. Who do you think's gonna win this series?
What are you doing, Seth?
Excuse me, good sir. Who do you think's gonna win this series?
Oh, this might just be because I'm a little bitter, and I don't want to get. I don't want to get stung by the Preds again. Maybe it's because I had them going too far last time.
You want them to break your heart again?
I don't want them to break my heart. I can't take it.
Don't go breaking his heart.
I don't know. I don't see Nashville scoring a lot of goals, and I think they're going to have trouble scoring against this Coyotes team.
Mm-hmm.
And if they get even a 10%, okay, maybe let's say a 20% better version of Phil Kessel, 20% better version of Taylor Hall, which I think is very possible. the way that the Preds lost last year was having absolutely abysmal power play. They went 0 for 15 in the first round against Dallas.
Yeah.
Like, that led to them struggling to score goals.
Yeah.
Arizona also has a very good penalty kill, especially with Michael Grabner, who's listed as an extra. We'll see if he slots in. He probably
Fisher
does.
is also there.
Yeah, great penalty killer, and with Brad Richardson as well, step on. I don't see them scoring by special teams either against the Coyotes that much. So I'm going to go with Coyotes.
Definitely, I couldn't agree more. I really like Nick Schmaltz. I've always loved Nick Schmaltz. In his Chicago days and North Dakota days, I believe he was in North Dakota.
I believe so.
Yeah, I really like that player, and I like you were saying, Kessel and Hall, if they are really the top tier talent that Nashville really lacks in terms of like number one player in the series. I really think, especially with their defense being so solid and having Dromson even on that third pairing, shows the difference in class and in defense. And then the goaltending, even if you get the best out of Saros and Rene, I think if you get the best out of Kemper and Ronta, I think it's even better in terms of that skill level. So I think it has to go to the Arizona Coyotes. So.
All right. Well, then
Perfect.
We're in agreement.
Awesome. So that has been another episode of this Seric Show with the playoff breakdown. That has been the Arizona Coyotes versus the Nashville Predators, and we'll see you again next time.